Welcome to It's Not You, It's Grief, a safe space to have candid conversations surrounding the many faces of grief. How do you handle the process while moving forward and ultimately getting back to living in the moment? Come on this journey as we navigate grief through the art of storytelling. And now for your host, Ahira Smith.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to It's Not You, It's Grief. My name is Ahira Smith, and I am the Grief Mending Coach. Thank you all for joining me on another fantastic episode. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of having a gentleman who happened to be a retired military veteran who I can just say has just done some phenomenal work in his 25-year career as personnel of the Army as well into the healthcare industries. This gentleman has served overseas, done multitude of tours to make sure that we civilians in the United States of America are well protected and are provided with the support that we need. And can I just say that I'm humble. The fact that all of our military people, for what the sacrifices them and their families do in order for them to go out and protect us out in the world. I'm very humbled. And I give recognition and support the military where I can because they deserve it. Because I'll be transparent. I'm not the one. I'll be just very, and it's not for everybody, but for those who have stepped up to the plate to sign up to be part of our military forces, whether it's the Army, Navy, Air Force, the Marines, Coast Guard, Rangers. I'm just very, very honored to interact with them. And so, in honor of the Veterans Day, which is November 11th, I decided to have a gentleman by the name of Mr. Chad Owens, who also is not only a retired veteran, but he's also happens to be a member of the distinguished fraternity of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And I asked him to come on my show tonight to really just give us a snapshot on his experience in the military and the stories that have impacted him regarding life and, of course, regarding grief and loss, but above all else, hope. And so, without further ado, Pat, hi.
Hi.
Thank you again so much for agreeing to come on my show. I really do appreciate it. Hope you're doing well.
Yep, it's my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. So, if you would be so kind, again, just give a little bit more information as to who you are, where you are right now in life, and by all means, I'm looking forward to hearing your story as far as what being a veteran has been for you in this day and age, because I know it's different for everybody. So the floor is yours.
Okay. My name is Chad Owens. I am a retired Army veteran. I did 24 years Army. I was in the job field of human resources. Uh, Went on serve half my career overseas in Germany, Korea. Then some did several deployments to Iraq, um, and dealt with casualties, dealing with death notifications throughout my time in the military. Retired 2019. I've been working in healthcare for the past 4.5 years. Um, I am a part of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, along with a lot of other community organizations. I live in Phoenix City, Alabama, and I am married with 2 kids.
Wonderful, wonderful to know. So 24 years. I'm what prompted you to even go into the military? I'm curious because everybody's reasoning for joining is different. So how did you even is it family or how did you even get part of the the military world?
Well, I graduated from college and I was working where I was. I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. So I was working and I just needed a change. So I already had an older brother, older sister that were in the military. So I kind of talked about it to them and my mother and my wife at the time, and they were like, "Go for it." So I, went through the process, joined, and off to the military I went. But another thing that the military was able to do for me, military was able to pay off my student loans from college. So I mean, so that's a lot of people, they think of the military, but the military has great benefits, and one of the benefits that I got of it was they paid off my student loans. Because you see today where people are, worried about paying off student loans. Not saying that their military is for everyone, but
Mm.
that was the secondary benefit of me joining the military. I had a young family at the time, so I just wanted to do something different, and I did my time, 24 years, served in different areas, and thoroughly enjoyed it.
Okay. So you mentioned that you already had people in your family military. You had older siblings. So were they part of the
Mhm.
army as well, or were they are different branches of the military?
Nope, one of my older sisters and my older brother were also Army.
Okay. Now, are they still currently active as well, or are they too retired?
Nope, they retired before me because they went in. My brother went in right after high school, and my sister went in, right before he did. So, yeah, they went in and did their time and retired before I did.
Do you miss it?
Um, Not really. I knew it was time. They always, when I was younger in the military, used to talk to their older gentlemen, older people in the military, the senior ranking people. When it's time to retire, they always would tell me this. They always say, "Owens, you gonna know when it's time to retire. You're just gonna have that get that feeling." And sure enough, you know, um, that I got that feeling probably at year 22. I just knew it was, wanted something different to do, and knew it was time to make a transition. So that, along with another significant event that really solidified for me to retire, back in 2017. My mother was murdered out of her home, and the last conversation I had with her was, "Hey, mom, I know I'm ready to retire, and because go back to being a civilian." So that happened. It happened Black Friday of 2017. So the day after Thanksgiving. I had, not talked to my mom Thanksgiving Day. So I saw a call her in the morning, and I got a call that morning with my sister saying that my mother had been shot, and this all kind of emotions went through my body, knowing that, hey, that had happened, um, because my mother was a strong individual, beat breast cancer along with other health issues, but overcame those, and still was alive and kicking. So when that happened, it kind of took a lot out of me, but I had to compartmentalize that because I was getting ready to go to Korea for a 9-month work assignment
Mm.
in like 2 months later. So I had to compartmentalize that, go through services, and then get my mind back into getting ready to go overseas for 9 months. So um, it was a lot,
Wow.
but but that solidified my decision that I was going to retire once I came back from that overseas last overseas assignment.
That makes sense. Well, first of all, my condolences to you on the loss of your mother, especially in that manner. I couldn't imagine what you and your family had gone through to hear such horrific news like that. Especially now, you were in Germany when that took place, or were you someplace else in the states here?
No, I was in Georgia. I was in
Okay,
Hinesville, Georgia, which is
okay,
where the base Fort Stewart is.
okay,
So yeah, well, so I was stateside when it happened.
okay, okay. So with that being said, I'm curious, did was the military, or did you find the support needed? Did you find the support services from the military available for you to handle the grief or loss? Were you able to connect with somebody to help you with that? Because as you said, you were compartmentalizing the fact that you lost your mother in this manner, and yet you are getting ready to go on assignment within 2 months to Korea. So, do you feel it? Did you get to support?
I did. From the military, my organization that I was in at the time was very supportive. Um, and even when I got to that overseas, I still were receiving support, able to go and talk to a counselor to discuss how I was feeling, what I was going through, and was able to manage my feelings, not only that happening, but also being in a whole other country, just kind of just like it happened. Now I got to get ready to still do my job. Well, the saving grace was is that my son, who had also joined the military maybe 4 or 5 years earlier, he happened to be in the same area that I was when all this was going on. So when I got
Mm,
to Korea, he and I got, I think, it was God's grace that he and I were put together in the same place, to
mm,
be able to support each other,
mm,
during that time because he was over already in that country when
mm,
this happened. So for me
mm.
to call him and tell him, and then him coming home, experiencing and going back, and then me coming over where he was a few months later, it was definitely a blessing, to be able to, have him and he had me, to be able to be each other's support, during that time.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's definitely a blessing without question. So I know with the military, there are things that just comes with the I don't want to the field, the I don't want to say the industry, but it just comes with the territory, if you will.
Yep.
And that's the loss of your fellow soldiers, your fellow comrades. And I'm I'm wondering for you, again, 24 years is a long time, and as you mentioned before, you have definitely have seen your share of losses. Do you feel did you ever feel like you were getting numb from having that type of news or experiencing a loss of another comrade or maybe a supervisor or somebody that you were stationed with at one time? Did you ever feel like you were getting numb upon hearing the news of somebody else who's no longer with you guys?
Oh, definitely. I mean, because in the field that I was in, human resources, and before that, it was personnel. Part of our job, my job, was if something event happened where there was a loss of life or someone was seriously injured, it was my job to report to the family, this,
Mm,
this happened to your family member, whether it was a spouse or the soldier was married, letting a mother or father know, about your son, or if he had grandparents. I mean, that was part of my job to put that report together to be able to one, let them know what happened. And then also as well, when I was deployed, part of my role was, collecting the uh, dog tags of those individuals. We call them bag them and tag them. An
mm,
event happened, and people were, where a soldier paid the ultimate sacrifice, and they had to go and bag and tag remains. You're putting those because there's the dog tags up, and that they're identified by. So
right,
putting those tags with those bodies. I've served where I worked at the military hospital Landstuhl in Germany, where when OIF in Iraq first kicked off, that's where they would fly seriously injured soldiers back to Germany. So once they were triaged and where they were down in Iraq, they were flown back to Ramstein and then brought to the hospital. So I got to see if people they were injured and recovering, working at the hospital. I mean, seeing from someone that was affected by a bomb or someone that was shot. So I was my job to administratively track them until they were got back to their home station wherever that was. Um, and then being on deployments, seeing those going in to areas where let's say someone is riding out in the enemy territory and they get hit by an IED bomb and their vehicle comes back to the safe zone, getting in where they're triage and operating on that person and getting all the necessary information, to do what's called a casualty report, where you're reporting, hey, this is who this person is, this is what happened, this is the circumstances, because we have to report this up, to be able to account for this person, whether the person was seriously injured, very seriously injured, whether the person ended up being deceased. So it was part of my job, to be in there, asking the right questions, getting the information, to be able to report out, what happened, to be able to account for those things. And then I've also been what's called a cash and notification officer, where I've part of a team where we would go to family members' homes. I don't know if you ever seen the movie when we were soldiers,
Yeah.
which was locally. Remember the cab guy that goes and does living death notifications, and she was
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, well, imagine, it's passed it on to where they have uniform members do that, and imagine going to young family's home where there's a spouse and maybe a young
Mm-hmm.
kid, maybe just married a year or two and they're deployed,
Mm-hmm.
and that happens, or a young soldier that is not married and going to a mother and father's house, to inform them that their son is no longer here or seriously injured. It wasn't always met with positive reactions, of course, being the news that was delivered. And I can tell you it's very emotional, because not only if I do that, I have to also support that family, for a period of time until everything is closed out with the soldiers' affairs. Whether it be paying out the insurance, whether there's a young spouse and not knowing ways of the military, and helping them navigate the support for them, maybe them moving back to their hometown, or if they are established enough where they are locally, helping them move to where their new housing is going to be, because housing is going to be. So after a while you do get numb. It's where you emotion of things that a normal person would show emotion for, you don't, because you've seen everything, and it's kind of taken a lot of the emotion out of you to be able to express any kind of grief or any kind of emotion. So
So how do you decompress that? I mean, can you even compartmentalize all of that based off your role? Is that something that can be, because as you said before, here you'll get a report of a young man, of a casualty, and then you'll get another report where now it's a young woman, and I'm sure it's not like a one a day situation. I'm sure it's like back to back to back. So how do you com- compartmentalize it, if you can, if that's even possible? Because I know you're numb, but
in the beginning it was hard, because y- you have siblings, you have friends that have age. Some of the few time it was with people I knew personally,
mm,
because of course, being in human resources, you are just like in resource in the civilian sector, you interact with everyone. So
right.
it could be someone that came in my office a week before that I helped them get their pay straight, or help get something else they taken care of with their employee file, and here I am now processing that employee, that they've paid the ultimate sacrifice, and given their life, or they've been very seriously injured, where they're had part of their body blown off by an IED bomb or something. So
Mm,
uh, I can say, it was a lot. I think that just I have good speaking out support of my wife and support of my friends. I also, would meditate a lot. I would also go and work out, to be able to just, just have my mind on something else. And sometimes when I work out, I push myself to the brink of exhaustion, just to be able to get all that negative energy out, and be able to, bring myself back to a positive mindset, to be able to deal with the next day, or be able to continue. So that's how I would, balance those feelings of being numb, or those feelings when I had to, with those things that happened during my time in the military.
So you bring up a part I'm glad you mentioned about your spirituality and your faith. I'm really would like to know, how has your spiritual journey evolved since the time you joined in the military, you know, those 24 years ago, to what all you've bear witness to and experience yourself, and where you are now? How has that changed when it comes to grief and loss?
Well, I grew up Catholic. In New
Okay.
Orleans, you have mostly majority Catholic, back Catholic religion.
Mhm.
When I went in the military, I still practiced, Catholic, Catholicism. And then as my time in the military went on, I did my own research and started, just, exploring other religious, faiths. And, so I consider myself Christian. I've always had the baseline of, I still believe in God. I still pray, even to this day, to where, because you have to have a spiritual base to be able to, for your life even to be in order. Giving everything, praise to God, to wake you up in the morning, to allow you to see the day, to close your eyes at night and then see it again the next day. I had many times when, there were close calls where I was, when I was overseas on deployments, so to be able to, be blessed to be able to survive that and still be able to sit here and talk today, is definitely a blessing. And I wouldn't have gotten through those times, without my faith, to be able to know that, there is a higher power watching over me, to be able to guide me through my days.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to just take it back for a second because you mentioned something that is clearly something that is talked about, especially amongst the military veterans, which is PTSD. And again, I would not sit here and insult you and your fellow military active and veterans to say that I know what you've been through, because that's an insult to your experiences. Um, I'm aware that PTSD is very real for you all, and not just how it impacts you individually, but also those that love and support you, your family and friends. My question is, do you feel that part of the reason why, based off your own experiences and what you've witnessed, do you feel part of the reason why a lot of military folks are having so much dealings with PTSD is that because there's not enough support to help them through what they're going through? Because, when you're in the military, and this is just based off what I've learned from watching and talking to the people, you're on the go. You're following orders. You're here now, but then, like you said, you're on assignment. You got to go at like immediately, or 2 months away, or you got to compartmentalize if stuff is happening. Do you feel like there isn't enough time or space for them to deal what may be impacting them negatively to the point where it's developing the PTSD, and then they just carry it onward? Is it what do you think why is there such large numbers of our veterans who are dealing with PTSD?
Well, part of it has to be the reason that there is not enough support. When you're in the military in a uniform, especially depending on your unit that is, always ready to go on an overseas assignment or go deploy, then you're training to stay ready because you never know when you're going to get called up. So those things where, you see guys that have been deployed 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and they've
Mhm.
been in the middle of combat where they see what they see every day, and that mindset, then having to come home and, to a family, to where there probably may have not been great communication between the wife and the husband, or to where the husband can express what he's going through. And because he thinks that he's always on, has to be on, regardless if he's in uh the the conflict itself or whether he's at home. So, and not opening up and talking is where a lot of soldiers have issues. So is all of that grief, all of that sadness and everything is pushed is repressed. And then what happens is, because they're not talking about it, or the ones that do talk about it, they're not getting the support. So they're like, why talk about it if I'm not going to get the support? you know and it builds up. It's kind of like, if you keep pressure, keeps building in a pot, you keep that lid on and you allow the steam to come out, then eventually that top is going to pop off that boiling pot. And because that pot has not allowed the steam to be released to balance the pressure. So fellow comrades that I have seen that have really had problems with PTSD, they just did not receive the support, or they felt they didn't have an outlet, whether it be at home or whether it be, counselors within the military, and they didn't feel they haven't had an outlet. So they constantly kept things inside and they constantly built up, to where, some of them lost families, some of them even took their own lives because because all of that pressure and all of those feelings, they didn't know what to do with them.
Mm.
So that caused a lot of heartache, for families, for individuals, for those who weren't married, even female soldiers. They experienced not only being in combat, but also assaults that happen within. So they have a double whammy where they're not only dealing with being in a combat zone, but also being in a combat zone where they can't trust their own uh, fellow comrade because she's had some type of assault on her, to where she has to deal with both of those feelings.
So, first of all, the fact that you mentioned that firsthand that there are soldiers or military folks who've been on 6, 7, or 8 tours. I w- maybe because of my ignorance or maybe because I'm a civilian, I would sit there and think, okay, you've done 3 tours back to back. Oh, you know, give him a break. Let somebody, I would think that because there's so many of military folks out there, I'm like, there's not some type of system in place of like, okay, he's at 4 tours. And again, maybe it's just my ignorance because I kind of think like, when you're thinking of an athlete, like a football player, and I know that it's like not the same thing, but when people who have had like 3 concussions, you know, the fourth one be like, okay, we know here's a record. You've been through this, you've had 3 or 4 concussions, you can't do this no more, you're out. And now when I'm hearing that, oh, this person's done 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 tours, I'm just like, don't don't you want to move them to maybe like somewhere not on the field, maybe behind the scenes, maybe who can I just find that's just off-putting for me because I would think because of what they witnessed, it would be not only detrimental to them in their mind, but also maybe to that of the unit or the assignment. Because, like you said, all that PTSD is just building in, and there's not enough support out there to help them navigate it or to just let loose for a second without it becoming harmful. That's just wow.
Yeah. Well, the military is supposed to it's supposed to have had a system in place where, if you're going on deployment for a while, then you come back, you have, 15 to 24 months that that you're not going to be in that type of environment, to where you have time with your family. Hey, if you're moving to a new job, new place, that's when all that stuff happens. But of course, if numbers are not where they need to be, and then sometimes the soldier ends up going to another unit that's just like the one he left, where they're a heavy prioritized unit for deployments. So basically, he's leaving from one unit and going to a new unit, but and he may catch, and leadership has not always been the best, where they're looking at, okay, hey, looking at this guy's record, like I being in HR, and I'm talking to senior leaders and new incoming personnel, and let's say we're on schedule to go to Iraq, Afghanistan. I'm saying, hey, here's this guy coming from a previous unit that just came back from the tour. He should not be part of this one. He should be part of the support staying behind, but you don't always get leaders that think like that, so a lot of times I was going back and forth with senior leaders, you want to be able to balance out manpower to where those that may not have gone before, they do go. And but sometimes those, that are not supposed to go because they've been a few times, they end up getting caught up because, hey, this person has experience. They're valuable to us. We can use their experience instead of training someone new in that same experience. And you giving, you're kind of spreading the wealth of available knowledge that you have, where you can balance out having your support team that's not going with your team that's ready, team that is going. So you had a lot of that happened. Then you had some soldiers that volunteered, they wanted to go because, of course, you get paid a little more when you're in these combat zones,
Mm.
and some people volunteered because they knew there was going to be extra money, and they had accustomed themselves to their lifestyle having that extra money, being deployed, so they would volunteer to do so. You know, I mean,
That's
and a lot of times, even if it's someone that has just come back from previous unit, if he's expressed to leadership he or she wanted to go because that's, they could help out. There, a lot of times leadership would, that's what they would go with. They wouldn't consider, well, hey, this person's been, just came in the past 3 years, this person's been deployed out of 36 months, they've been deployed, 20 out of those 36 months. Then, that should be where that person should be, not a priority person. It should be a secondary person. But like I
mm,
said, you have leadership that doesn't have that. Not all leadership has that same mindset. They're giving their orders to, hey, we need to be able to get you ready to be replaced. The previous unit that was where you're going to be replacing someone on the battlefield, and you need to be at this number of people with these number of skills to be able to replace what was there. So there's a lot of pressure from all sides, to where that leadership doesn't always make the best decisions.
wow. That's I'm learning so much. I'm learning so much. Again, as I said in the very beginning, I'm always honored and humbled when I come across military folks, just because of the sacrifices that they and their families, do for us who don't know. But now I have nothing but even more admiration and respect for what you're sharing with me, because that's very heavy. And as you said, the orders, the military, we know it's about orders. You follow those orders. You don't question, you don't go back and forth with that. If that's the case, you don't go in the military. You just, you be a civilian. So just kind of, right now we're getting close to the holidays, and so I kind of would like to know, um how how do you celebrate the holidays? Especially, Veterans Day is coming up. How do you celebrate that particular one, in regards to those close loved ones that you had who may no longer be with you? How do you take time to remember and celebrate their life?
Well, the common thing that I tell people is the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day.
Mhm.
Memorial Day is for those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice and have already, are already going on in their lives. Veterans Day are for those, who are still here.
Okay.
So if people often tell me, when they see, like Memorial Day or something, and I'm like, no, Memorial Day is not for me. Memorial Day is for my buddy that died in IED, or my other
Mm,
buddy that took their own lives. Veterans Day
mm,
is for those who have served honorably,
mhm,
within, or honorably in armed forces. For me, that day, I just, when I wake up in the morning on that day, I just, pray and thank, remember those who were I served with that are no longer here.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
give strength to their families, for another year of that person not being here. And just, remember them the way that they were when they were alive,
Mhm.
and know that they're in a better place, because of what they've done and what their ultimate sacrifice. Um, with me personally, my mother, Thanksgiving is usually, so it's usually a tough time. Mother's Day is usually a tough time, but end of the year with the holidays, because mom was always the centerpiece for the family, and be able now it's been 6 years in a couple of weeks, that my siblings and I are still close. We've maintained constant communication with each other, to where we still carry on her tradition. And we, rotate who hosts the holidays, whether it be Thanksgiving and Christmas. And we just remember our mother, and all the things that she taught us, and her memory, and just carrying on, her traditions and memory, as we continue on our lives.
Yeah.
So that's what I do, as far as the holidays. Now, not everybody has that same luxury. A lot of people, may not have the support, with their family, or a lot of people may not be able to, get their mind in the thinking of, okay, my spouse is no longer here, or my brother's no sister no is no longer here, or my parent is no longer here, or so not everybody handles or has that same support, has that same strength to be able to, because holidays, I mean, that's when people usually get together. If it's no other time of the year, military is, always busy doing throughout the year, but during at the end of the year, from Thanksgiving all the way through January, the military is typically in a very light schedule.
Mhm.
We have what's called block leave. Typically, people take their 2 weeks, or however long they're going to take off during that time, you know, um, and go home to their families, or family comes to visit them, depending where they are. But you always have those soldiers who may not have that family support, so they're stuck in the single soldier housing on the military base. The
Mhm.
way they don't have that support, and those are the ones that we have to worry about, because they don't have that support. Or the ones that do, you have to worry about them as well, because they may have had some kind of childhood trauma go on, that surfaces during that time. They may not have a good relationship with their family, and they may be having marital problems, so all during the holidays, when everyone is, not being able to be, when usually people get gathered, doesn't always happen. So we always have to, suicide around the holidays is always, the awareness is always heightened for the military,
Mhm.
because you see a lot of suicides happen over the holiday period, or a lot of deaths happen over the holiday period, because you have a lot of vehicle accidents, or just things that happen because of the time of year it is. So
Mhm.
it's always been heightened. Always been, leadership has always, made sure that, for those at risk people, are those people that are high risk, really, talking with them, and giving the support they need, to make sure that they get through the holiday season.
So you bring up something that I would really like to know. How can we as civilians support our veterans when it during the holiday season? Because you just made a valid point that this is a time where unfortunately a lot of people aren't able to get together with their loved ones for one reason or another, and it could be heavy, it could be very depressing, not just those of veterans, but those of us who are civilians. So, how can we, as civilians, how could somebody like me support veterans who may be not able to spend their time with their loved ones?
There are organizations that partner with the military. There's the military support organizations, that you can, that look for agencies, businesses, individuals, maybe can provide meals to those persons or whatever, or be an adopt a soldier, where, hey, maybe that soldier comes out to an event that you have, where you have a gathering, or providing, some type of, token of appreciation or something. Hey, all the single service members, hey, you can come out to this particular event where you can, you be around people. So I mean, in every base, in every area, there's always a need for, the outside agencies, that to partner with the agencies that are on the military bases to provide that support to those people that may need it.
Okay. Well, I definitely, you know, the adopt a soldier, that's actually that's something that's my first time ever hearing something like that. It doesn't surprise me that they have a program like that, but you know what? That sounds something that's definitely doable. Because again, we this is a time where we really do need to be supporting one another. This world is crazy as it is, and moments like this, you families or people are able to come together. There's a bunch of people over the last probably 10 years that have Friendsgiving. Where friends are coming together to do a potluck dinner. So hopefully for those who are watching this and listening to it, they may be able to reach out to those different organizations that support the military to just be mindful of the season, the reason of the season, and to just help where we can in a supportive manner. So I really do um, really like that idea, and I'm definitely going to get some additional information to put that on my website and my podcast. So I just have two more questions.
Sure.
So if you had to do it all over again, would there be anything different?
I don't think I would do anything different. I think my journey is my journey, and the things that I went through because it was supposed to happen. God sees and knows all. He knows what's going to happen to us before we do. So I think if for me to go through the journey that I've gone through, my career with my family, I'm where I'm supposed to be. You know, um, and a lot of people just have that same question too. If you have to go do it all again, they said I would change it, wouldn't do this, wouldn't do that. Well, your steps are ordered. So you have to walk in those steps. I mean, it may not be the most easiest. It may not make sense to you, but in the end, when you get to where you are, you understand after you've gone through those circumstances and going through those events, that help shape you as a person.
And my last question is, what what words of wisdom could you embark upon my audience who may be that mix civilians and veterans, but in this case civilians? What words of wisdom would you be able to embark upon us when it comes to the veterans and in regards of the day in day out sacrifices that you guys make for us to stay safe? Like what is like maybe one or two things that you would like for us to keep in mind when it comes to our interactions with the veteran?
Veterans are people just like everyone else, but except that we've gone through a few more things maybe that someone who has not served in the military has. Forget all the propaganda you see on TV or what you see going up in DC. Actually sit down and talk to a veteran, whether it be someone that's been a World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, the last most recent war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Think of veteran when you see them, because I mean the liberties that most people live here in the United States, if it wouldn't be for those in the military, you know, going out there and paying the ultimate sacrifice and going all these fighting all the enemies, foreign and domestic. Just think of where what happened. I mean, look what's happening in Israel. Look what's happened in Ukraine. Just think of that happened here in the United States if we didn't have the military that we have to be able to protect us from those type of things happening. So instead of criticizing things that go on within the military, talk to a veteran and just try to look from things from their point of view and understand what they go through. Because I always tell people that criticize the military, and if you can do better, you go and enlist and join, and you get your own experience. You know,
Mm.
and mostly they don't say anything after that because they will say, well, I can't see myself doing that because of whatever their reasoning is. So until you walked a mile in a soldier's or sailor or airman or marine or coast guard or space force, until you walked a mile in their boots, then you don't have shouldn't have anything to say as for criticizing anything about the military.
Noted. Noted. And what would you like to say to your fellow veterans out there who may be going through some challenging times right now with grief and loss and even with that PTSD? What would you like to share with them as far as from one veteran to another?
A closed hand cannot accept, a closed heart cannot love, and a closed mind cannot think new ideas. So don't try to be an individual on an island. Reach out, because there's always someone there that can help you.
That's it. That's the best thing I've heard, and I don't think that's something that should just resonate with veterans. I think that's just as a human being, period. Closed hand, closed heart, closed mind. There's no reason to be off by ourselves when there's so much out there, support services, people who are able to help. Not everybody is on that olive branch, but there's still a branch out there where somebody's extending it out there. So Chad, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experiences, you educating me. Definitely, I learned a lot. And again, nothing but the utmost respect to you and your fellow veterans for all and your families for all that you guys had to endure and sacrifice to make sure the liberties of me and my family and my friends are able to see another day in the society in the world that we live in. So from me to you, thank you so much. I want to wish you and your fellow veterans a happy Veterans Day. Every day should be a happy day for you because we're here to see it. But honestly, happy Veterans Day coming up, and I look forward to staying in contact with you, and hopefully we can do something together to help those who need some additional support in this realm. So I really do appreciate you joining me. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the offer.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for those of you who would like some additional information to support our veterans, regardless if them dealing with grief and loss or just to want to support them, in their endeavors, I will definitely have additional information posted on the podcast description. So next time you see a veteran, doesn't have to be Veterans Day, just say thank you for your service and keep it going. I promise you that it would resonate with them more than you realize. So, from me to you all, thank you so much for joining me. This is another episode of It's Not You, It's Grief. I look forward to seeing you all on our next special episode. And take care and be well, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening, being intentional, and sharing this moment with us. We at It's Not You, It's Grief deeply understand the many facets of grieving, and we want to make sure we can be here for you. Again, thank you for listening, and tune in again wherever you subscribe to podcasts. We look forward to seeing you next time. Be well.